Good morning, everyone. This is Doug. This is episode 4 of our podcast on the Jesus Words Only channel. This episode will be a continuation of Deb's interview of myself, and one of the main topics in this episode will be Jesus' words are their own miracle. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and again, if you have any feedback of things we could improve or cover in interviews like this, please let us know. All right, here we go.
We'll see. Um, okay, so how do you go about selecting your next investigations or topics, or how is it transpired? Maybe you plan it, maybe you don't. Is it organic? How do you go from, one topic to the next? How has that happened?
Hmm. Well, I do two things. One is I respond to comments that I get on the videos I've done, and then that leads me to do more research. And so that's why I spend a lot of time, 2 to 3 hours a day, going over comments because eh, eh, many people have good questions. Uh, Many people are critical, whatever, and I like that. So that I don't try to shut down good critical commentary because I want to keep learning. So that helps a lot. I read the comments and I make studies. But then I also watch a lot of YouTube videos and I find references to things that I can then look up and research. And that's really kind of how I do things. And then I have I love this app. It's on a Apple iPhone. I don't know if it's Android. It's called Notability, and you can take any book you have, like those books behind you. You can have them all scanned into PDFs. You can put them in your Notability, and I have over 100 books in there, and I can just pick that up and edit with my electronic pencil, and I can keep notes, and I can start doing research while I'm on my iPad from the book. And what I often do, if you ever notice, is I screenshot a book. Well, I just screenshot it on my iPad. I put it onto PowerPoint inside my iPad, and I start building a study through the iPad. Now, a lot of them never see the light of day. I just do the study using iPad, so I can actually take the best portions of a book I'm reading and put it in there, or an article I'm reading. So, uh, yeah. So I basically have three sources: my Notability books, my notes from my comments. I keep track of them in a thing called projects, and they're future projects. I got like dozens of future projects. I could never run out of anything because I have such a list of things I want to go through. Um, but it's just fun and curiosity about a lot of different topics in the projects list. And then the other is the YouTube videos I watch every day. I try to watch regularly Tobias Singer, who else? Bart Ehrman, James Tabor, and there's a lot of others. Yeah, but those are the three I try to watch regularly. Eisenman used to be having a lot more videos, and then he's kind of disappeared. The History Valley, by the way, I want to put a plug in for my friend Jacob. He's got a lot of good videos and scholars. He brings in top scholars who will talk about stuff, and you learn a lot that way.
Excellent. Yeah, I did want to ask you if you have certain YouTube channels or blogs or scholars that you follow. So that's
Yeah.
great. So a lot of people, they might maybe start projects like this, but it seems like very few people keep up the consistency and the engagement that you have for, I don't know how many decades now. So, uh,
You
you're doing
never
the
run out of
research,
material here. That's the
right?
problem. I wish I could say it's over. I finished. I got everything. See,
Well,
that's why that discovery of Bishop Ambrose is so important. In fact, what I want to do, if I had enough time, I'm going to retranslate all of Ambrose because what else did we not? What else has been hidden away from us and not translated in full? I'm actually working on a couple of things: the translation of Karlstadt's book, The Canon of the Scripture, and also an article by Hoodman. Will come out first. Hoodman wrote an article on the Book of Luke. Was written to a magistrate. I'm trying to translate the Latin title. Is And he wrote this in 1720. So this took a long time to find. Thank you, Mike Gracia. He found it for me, and he's a good researcher if anyone wants one. And but this is a wonderful article that we really do know that Luke and Acts were not written for Christians. They were written for a pagan magistrate named Theophilus. Pagan. And but that was for the appeal of the very thing you're reading in the book of Acts. Paul is accused in Acts 21 by the Jews of Asia of having brought in Trophimus to defile the temple. And that means Trophimus entered the temple in an uncircumcised state. Trophimus is a friend of Paul's from Ephesus, and Luke tells you that. And then Paul's alibi in Acts 21 was that I was in a ceremonial bath when that event happened. Okay, so he's claiming I wasn't with him. But I think the Jews of Asia were blaming him for even him being unsupervised and being allowed to just walk wherever he wanted to, and he goes and violates the temple. So the abomination of desolation that's talked about in Daniel, I believe, happened right there with the Trophimus. So that fulfilled prophecy. And so it's not a small little detail, it's a big detail. And it fits in the Daniel 9 prophecy of the Messiah coming, and that there will be before Jesus says, you'll see the abomination of desolation. And when you see that, begin to prepare to leave for the hills. Okay. So Trophimus event happens in 57 AD approximately, and or maybe 59, but it's not a decade later that the temple was destroyed. So there was a fulfillment of prophecy in that event.
That's a project you'd like to get working on. Any other projects coming up that you would want to tell us about?
No, those are the three. Hootman is the number one to finish. The Karlstadt canon document, definitely I want to put together so people can see here's the Reformation view that Jesus is up here and Paul's down here. You know, you get that. I think that would hit people better if they could actually see Karlstadt's book, and because he actually diagrams it. So it's like, I just have to reconstruct the diagram. Those two would be number one. And then the other, if I could get the time, is to retranslate all of Corinthians, because I wonder what else Ambrose was loose lips. And I think the reason, by the way, it slipped by the censors of the Catholic Church is it was such a long, there was no such commentary like that in history until First Corinthians was commented on. It was very long, very detailed. And there is no other commentary. If you try to study, where was a commentary anything like that before that time? No. This was like the first thing where a guy sits down and he does a detailed commentary. So it's just too long to read. So, they said, let it go. Who's gonna read such a long book? Some guy maybe 2,000 years from now, but we don't have to worry about that guy. So they let it go. And literally until Bray translated in 1999, it was never translated into any other language. It just sat there all these decades, all these centuries. No one translated it. And that means nobody knew how clear the admission was by the early Roman Catholic Church that Paul had been determined the false apostle by the 12, not by Doug, by the 12.
So I admit to keep asking, what fuels you, or how do you keep up your energy level for all of these projects? And
I walk 2
especially,
miles a day.
well, well, you really
I
engage
drink
with people,
tea.
do you? I mean, you take a lot of time responding to comments, and you can see this on your YouTube channel. I mean, going years back when people pose questions to you in comments, you respond in length. So it's you really put a lot of time and
Well,
energy.
okay, all right, here's maybe something to help people understand is when you're trained as an attorney, you use your brain 100% of the day. You get up, you go to work, you work from 9 till 7 at night, you come home by 8, 8:30, your wife's already eaten, you go to bed. You know what I mean? So work, 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 study, 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 read, 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 get prepared, make an argument. So it's ingrained. It's like a habit you want to, you've done for decades. And so it's just simply, but now I go to bed earlier, or I eat dinner with my wife. I enjoy time with her, so we do live a different life, but I enjoy the continue study and active investigation of this topic. And I think a lot of people encourage me. That's important to me. I get people. I do get a lot of hate mail, but I get a lot of encouraging mail, and so I only need one little encouragement a day. That makes me go, okay, it's all worth it. You get all this hate mail, and you get people who are just uh, bullies and inquisitors and things like that. You have to just say, hey, I'm not going to bother with them, worry about what they're saying. I got to do what I got to do. Just like in law, by the way, in every legal, I just want to say this: a lot of people they're not able to really deal with pressure of an opposing point of view. And the one good thing, if you wanted to get prepared for something like that, is you become a lawyer and learn that everything I do, there's always an opponent paying a lot of money against me. If I go to trial, I got a big opponent against me. It's a tough thing to win cases. It's not easy, and go up on appeal and win those. I mean, so I've done those for decades. Hundreds of motions I've done. So you got to learn how to have opponents and not be wilt under opposition. And the thing is a lot of people, you learn after time, a lot of people learn how to make stupid arguments that are just talking and chatter. They think it literally by chattering at you and saying something that doesn't mean anything that they are winning. No, I know how to deal with chatter. I call it out. You're chattering at me. You're saying nothing. Give me some content. Give me an explanation that makes sense. So that to me is the thrill of and I got to say this too is I knew I was going to win when I go to trial. I would know whether I was going to win or not. Meaning, I got every argument covered. I got everything done. I got all the cross examinations ready. I got everything to destroy the other side's arguments. So it's like the trial is the easiest part. Do you see what I'm saying? I can walk through the trial. That's the least stressful. And other people think trials are stressful. Not if you're prepared. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to prepare, and I'm actually trying to invite people to debate me, but I have a rule. I have rules about it. You have to do it by video because if you don't do it by video, people can sneak in false statements, and then in the middle of a debate, you can't correct them, and then that becomes permanent in video that it records the debate. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be the purveyor of falsehoods by people who debated against me and said something untrue, which under the pressure of circumstances I can't rebut. No, we're going to do it just like we do it in court. I present my case, you present your rebuttal. If I want, I can rebut you, and then you can rebut me, and so on and so forth. And we have rules that this can be done. And then I have a offer to do this. I'll pay anybody who wants to debate me $100 on whether Jesus condemned Paul's experience on the road to Damascus, that he saw Jesus on a wilderness road. In That's Acts 9:22 and 26. There are three different accounts. And then in Acts 23:11, he says Jesus physically came down and was in the room with him. And Jesus says, no, no, no. When I ascended to heaven, I'm not coming back unless every eye sees me, east and west. So if you want to debate me on that, you have an open opportunity. And you just have to follow my rules, and I'll pay you $100 to do it. And then so you have nothing to lose. You gain $100, and five people have initially accepted, and when they saw what the content was, and they didn't want to do it anymore. That topic was beyond their ability to refute. So if you think I'm wrong, challenge me. I'd like to have a number 6 try, or even just investigate. And I'm going to show you the videos that you have to rebut. Okay. So that to me this is the fun. You ask me, why do I enjoy what I'm doing? Why do I do what I'm doing? Because it's fun. And I always do things to win. And I make sure that I research every little detail and no, don't make a mistake. I can't afford to make any mistakes. And that's another thing. A lot of people write all kinds of junk. They send me an article they haven't researched. And it's like, that's not how you do this. You got to go research it, and you got to investigate. You got to be absolutely sure what you're saying is true. That's what keeps me going.
Excellent. And you threw in some advice there too about how to deal with some vitriol and at the same time. So that's great.
Yeah, don't just just realize you're going to always have people who are haters about anything you do in life, particularly if you're taking a stand for Christ. Believe it or not, they think they're standing for Christ by standing with Paul. The answer is no. That's the easy thing. That would be the easiest thing in the world. Everybody loves Paul. Paul gives you the license to do whatever you want. It's standing with Jesus. That's what's hard to do for some reason. And the biggest opponents of standing with Jesus are actually Pauline Christians, not atheists. They're going, hey, we like Jesus. He seems to be a good philosopher from their perspective. They don't have a big deal against him, but the Pauline Christians don't hate it if you just want to follow Jesus. That's like you're a heretic. You have to be squashed like a bug.
So with that, the last thing I have is what are some of your favorite words of Jesus?
Oh, okay.
We
Well,
can end on that note, maybe.
okay. Uh, well, I think that the entire Sermon on the Mount would be the first thing I would recommend anybody to read. I especially like a lot of passages in Luke, the prodigal son. His words are impactful to me when they tell a story, um, and his message on the sheep and the goats. I mean, these are things that are architected in such a perfect way. I mean, people. Uh, if you had to study Jesus as a literary figure, you'd have to say this man is a genius to tell you in succinct style the parable of the sheep and the goats. You know, over here on the left are those who call me Lord, 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 but don't do what I say, and over here those call me Lord, 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 and do what I say, and they take care of the poor, the widow, and the orphans. You know, he does it in such a what do you call this? Does he call this in Greek literature, you would call this antithesis. And antithesis is the way to cement something in somebody's brain. So to me, what I love about Jesus is I can see the parallel structures and the contrasting structures, and it's just pure genius. And what's amazing is nobody in history has ever replicated this again. I mean, he stands out, you know, if you could study all the literature of the world, all the classic literature, Plato, Aristotle, and all the famous Stoic philosophers, nobody comes close. If you read Marcus Aurelius, you know how long the longest comment he has on anything is like two sentences. So they're all like little truisms or aphorisms. And I like Marcus Aurelius's meditations, but nothing is in depth. When you read Jesus, you're reading a construct that you can memorize not by word, but by the visual picture in your brain. So there's the 10 virgins, there's the um but you know, I've come to find a lot of new verses that I like. Jesus says you know, there's strive to enter by the narrow gate, for you know, uh hard is the way that leads to life, but those who try to enter by the broad way and the easy way will head to destruction. Okay. Again, there's that. What is that go? What is he doing? He's doing contrast and parallels, contrast and parallels. So you can't forget. I don't remember the words verbatim. I don't try, but you literally have the construct is so memorable you can remember it, and so it's easy to memorize the main points of the passage, and that's to me almost everything he says is of this nature. They're always memorable, and you don't have to memorize. It's memorable without being people having to memorize. And you got to remember, in that culture that he was talking to, they didn't write anything down. I mean, the people who would listen to him were not writing it down. What were they doing? They were forming pictures in their minds, and that's what he was brilliant at. He was brilliant at was, and that's why you know these were not written as gospels. People say, "Oh, they were written in writing," so he could. No, they were written for people who could only hear, and you don't use parables. You don't need parables when you're talking in an expository way. Okay, so if I'm writing an expository thing, I could just simply summarize the principle. You could take the sheep and the goats, and if I was expository, I would simply say, "Please give charity to the widows, the orphans, the needy, the people without clothes, and visit the prisoner in prison." Period. End of sentence. That'd be like Marcus Aurelius talks, right? And you go, wow, what a really wonderful guy that he recommends those virtuous things. But Jesus doesn't have to do it that way. He's talking to live people in live ways. So he actually is obviously talking to people. That's how I know these are not written. They were not written first. They were all oral. And that's how you know it was oral. And that means he's a genius to speak in a fantastic way that nobody ever has replicated since. Nobody's even tried.
Amazing. And the parable format is just so rich and um, that's just amazing. I really enjoyed your response there. That's a lot to think
Okay.
about. Yeah, that's
Well,
really
these are questions nobody ever asked me about too, by the way. And I think
oh
they're
well,
interesting for those who, well, you know, studying the life of Jesus is an endless opportunity for fun, and to admire, like I've told people, is they say, "Have you ever seen a miracle or something like that?" I said, you know what? The writings of Jesus are themselves a miracle. This never happened again. Nobody's ever been able to replicate it at all, and it would require an extraordinary genius. If you read Shakespeare's plays and stuff, do you know how many times he makes allusions to the words of Jesus? every time he makes a wise statement in Shakespeare, there always are an allusion back to the parables. He just uses these imageries. He pulls them in because he knows the audience will resonate with these images. These parables have stuck in their brain, whether we like it or not. We know what these passages mean, and that's why ultimately I love the topic of Jesus. It's endless fun, endless brilliant writing. I have a recent book, recent art video called "What Explains Jesus Being a Literary Genius," right? Because what explains that? It's a miracle. So you don't need to see. I don't need to see a miracle to know who Jesus really was. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't need to see a single miracle. I can prove it by reading him. Who he really was somebody far beyond far beyond this world. That's how you know he's not an ordinary person, and he never will be, and you can never put him in a box, and you can't claim. But see, going back to Paul now, Satan can emulate him, right? But Paul never uses parables. He's always writing. And that's what's so interesting. I can tell where he's getting it from. He's using aphorisms and things that are very famous. God does not dwell in temples made of human hands. It's a Stoic aphorism, kind of a statement of composition, very well put, right? But it's still one single thought. It's not a construct of a parable. Where does Paul have any parables? Nowhere. He is simply writing. That's how I know he's from earth. He's from earth. Jesus is from heaven. You can just tell it by the way they both write totally differently from each other. But one is robbing the classics of classic antiquity. That's his choice. But Jesus is not even. There's nothing like these in classical antiquity. There's no parables like that. Anyway,
Well, thank
all
you,
right,
Doug.
Deborah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
being
Deborah.
willing to answer my questions and meet with me. And these have been great. So hopefully you'll be up for maybe some more questions in the future too.
Hopefully we will. I look forward to it. All right.
All right.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks
good
so
good
much.
day. Okay. Ciao. Bye.